yours. I just figured you were angry at the
Tina
world.
sent something, and I was like, "That's enough of that." No,
All right. You want to
yeah,
push it
sorry.
live, so I guess? Yeah, I already did. Okay, cool. Hopefully Tina's watching.
Yeah, sure. She knows how I feel.
I think
All right, I
knows.
am I'm ready, I think.
Me too.
Okay.
All right. Are you, Paul? Hello, everybody, and welcome to an introductory lesson on how to use Skype. Today, Paul will tell us what happens when you're set in Do Not Disturb mode for 18 hours.
I have an awesome Skype story for later, but we'll save that for just 30 seconds.
Miracast will not save that for 30 seconds, though.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go. Here we go. Today's show is brought to you by Cloudberry. Check them out at cloudberrylab.com/FRD to learn about a whole bunch of backup goodness, and we'll talk about them here in just a minute. But what is your...
So, as you may know, I went back to Boston last weekend to visit with some friends, and I saw my mother, and I went to a bunch of restaurants I obviously haven't been to in a long time, and we were in we have a friend who's a chef who owns a restaurant in West Roxbury, and I was like, oh, he said we should FaceTime with your wife, and I was like, well, I use an Android phone, so let me think about how we might do that. She has an Android phone, so I texted her and I said, do you have like Google Allo or Duo or whatever it's called? And she's like, no, and I'm like, you know, how are we going to make this work? And my friend and I were kind of going back and forth in different apps that might make sense. And then I was like, oh, I said, I know. I said, do you have Google Hangouts? And she said, yeah. And I said, I don't, but I'll install it. And so we used Google Hangouts and it worked okay. And then, of course, I got 123 spam messages on Hangouts immediately. So anyway, she got to say hi to our friend, and then we're eating dinner and we're kind of talking about whatever. And then like literally 15 minutes later, I was like, you know, I think it's notable that it never once occurred to me to use Skype. Like it never even occurred to me. I said, I record 7 podcasts a week. I probably spend, 7 to 8 hours a week on Skype easily. And it never even crossed my mind.
Yeah.
How much I love it.
This is a very random thought. And this is in the back of my mind. This is me just hoping that this will happen. But I'm wondering if this is the year that Apple's iMessage actually makes it to Android. And the reason why, I have a very specific reason why, and I think it has to do with Apple Cash, because they're now allowing you to do peer-to-peer payments, which, is great or whatever, unless your friend doesn't have an iPhone. And I can't imagine you're sitting around, like typically, here's a scenario. Me and my buddies, we go golfing, we bet like $1 per hole, nothing, crazy or whatever. And then at the end, we all square up and we use Venmo. Because that's just what we use. Apple Cash hasn't existed, even though we all have iPhones, except for one guy who has an Android. And I don't see him switching to iPhones because then he can square up on his golf losses or whatever. But I think Apple needs to make a decision about what's more important, establishing that Apple Cash is a de facto payment method or that iMessage stays on iOS.
By the way, I think you can make a much better case for Apple to put iMessage on Android than putting Apple Music on Android. And
sure,
I had commented on this in an article about iBooks is apparently going to be renamed to Books, and that there's kind of a trend with Apple software, especially to kind of get rid of the I naming, the I branding, and use Apple instead. And that Apple, in some ways, like Microsoft, is sort of realizing that their core brand makes more sense than their sub brands. And it's especially true when these things work across different device types, And I mean, if Apple, you can make this case, for various Apple services. If they're serious about X, they should put it on Android, because it becomes a halo product in a sense that it gets people into your ecosystem one step in. And if they enjoy it, if it's truly a superior service, they may want to go whole hog next time and get an iPhone or whatever.
Right.
I don't understand why they don't do more of that stuff, but I don't run Apple, and obviously they're the most successful company on earth.
There was a point in time where iTunes was actually that bait, right? They put it on Windows, and if you wanted to use it with a media player, you had to buy an iPod. And so
that's right.
There you go. Speaking of Android, we'll jump around here in the show notes because Paul's probably getting lost because he's easily confused by large things in front of him.
By impromptu discussions.
Yes.
Just confused. I thought we were doing a podcast. Sorry, go
on. Much probably to the chagrin of Samsung, this is what is, I believe it comes from EVLeak, so it's probably pretty reputable. This is the Samsung Galaxy S9. You can probably guess the specs, 4 gigs of RAM, 64
from previous Samsung devices.
Snapdragon 845. But this is supposedly coming. Yes.
Their design is beautiful. It works. I wouldn't make major changes either. They apparently are moving the fingerprint reader to below the camera. That's good. They're putting it in the right direction. I still think it needs to be a little south of where it is, but they're getting there. I will say it's probably better. If you think about how you might hold a phone, as your finger kind of moves out the back of it, you'll hit that first. And that's good because the way the thing is now, these things are horizontally located next to each other. And, a lot of people bump their finger into the camera, which is bad. So anyway, they don't have a notch. I'm a little surprised the bezels aren't a little smaller, but they have that curved screen thing, which is unique still and beautiful. I think those are going to be nice.
It kind of reminds me of the Pixel 2 a little bit, like the bezels on it.
Yep. I think the Samsung rendition is going to be technically more competent and also better looking. But yes, you're right. It does have visually resemble the Pixel 2 XL. Yeah.
If they could get close to the Pixel 2's camera, this would actually be Samsung's going to sell tons of these things. This is kind of like if you don't want Apple and you don't want Google, this is typically where you end up. And it's not. That's fine. It's a great phone. There's nothing against it.
Oh yeah. If I'll read I'm not going to order one or anything like that. But when the reviews come out and if the camera works out to be as good or better, then I would consider it then. But I think I've had enough knee-jerk phone attempts over the past year. I'm just going to, I think I'm going to bide my time this time, unless they show up for once and frickin' give me a review copy, which they promised for the Note 8 and it never showed up. But you never know, I guess.
Well, Paul, this phone's probably going to be a bargain. I mean, you're used to spending $1,100 on a phone, $1,000. This one will probably come in, somewhere $800-900-ish.
Something, yeah. Also, if you could stand to wait a couple of months, they have these incredible sales all the time. It won't be that way right up front, but you won't have to wait too long before that will be even cheaper. It's a good point. I mean, it was done to humiliate me, but I accept it. I'll absorb that blow.
I got nothing.
Yep. Can I ask you a question, Brad? Can I ask you? Can I ask you something? Did you order a HomePod today?
No, I did not.
Yeah. This is what I'm like. I just to give you some insight into my twisted brain.
Did you?
I got an I got an email from Apple today.
Hey, ring the bell.
Oh no. Sorry. Oh. No, I didn't. I'm sorry.
Oh, I thought you did. I was like,
but this is how my brain works. I saw the email from Apple. I clicked on it. It went to the page. It said I could order it now. I could choose between white and black. I chose white. And then I literally said, "What the are you doing?" I was like, what is wrong with you? Like I literally started down the process. Yeah. That's what tech candy is right there.
It is.
You don't need it and you can't explain why you want it, but you do.
Yeah. If I'm going to spend, I will tell you what I am tempted by though, are those 2 Sonos One speakers for $349.
That's a good deal. Yeah. I agree.
I'll see next
and
week.
By the way, I thought about that too. And that's another, the same insight. It's just a different story about the same thing. But I also went to the Sonos website, looked at the colors. I have 2 white ones and 1 black one, so it doesn't kind of matter which type I get. But but I'm walking away from that stuff, right? I'm like, Paul, what are you doing? Like you have a pair of $100 speakers that sounds better than these. Why? Like I am broken. I guess I have enough self-awareness to like stop the process or sometimes I'll order it and then return it, like, which is something I don't normally think of myself as doing, although I did do that a lot last year. Yeah, it's tough when we do what we do too, because we're not just typical tech enthusiasts, right? Who have like a impulse
Mhm.
buy problem. We can make these justifications for what, why
It'll
we
be in
should have
post.
this thing. Like, yeah, I mean, this could pay for itself. It's sort of. I mean, not really, but you know what I mean. Like, it's
Right.
ludicrous, but yeah.
Yeah, the reason why the two Sonos One has me is because right now I have an Echo Dot upstairs, and then I
Yep.
have just whatever the standard one down here, and I want to get one to put in my kitchen because then I'll have stereo sound in my kitchen because
Hmm.
who doesn't need stereo speakers in their kitchen because I already
Thank
have
you.
one up there.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like, well, shit.
Yep.
If I can get another one for another $100 on top of like what I would have been paying anyways, I can put one in my
Uh-huh.
office and then just be done with it. But
I will say for you, you do have Sonos equipment. You do have Echo equipment. This is
yeah,
the Reese's peanut butter cup of that. It would add and enhance to what you already have. It makes sense on a certain level. I mean, whether or not it makes sense to spend. Well, I almost said it's only $350. I mean, it's only a car payment on a Lexus, Brad. Of course, you should get this thing.
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, they're nice speakers. I
They are. The
went over
one
that
thing I
this week.
if they would come out and say that Google Assistant would be on that thing in the next 2 months, I would be
Mhm.
very strongly I would buy them.
Oh,
Um,
that would change it for me
just
too. If they announced that right now, I would say, you
well,
know what? Screw it. I'm willing
they
to pay a
said they
little
were
more to get,
considering it.
you know,
So
yeah,
it's
well,
but for Sonos to say they're considering it, that could mean it can show up between now and 19 years from
I,
today. So they're very slow with their software development. But
yeah, they are, and horribly slow. In fact, while I was using Sonos equipment, I put my main phone on the Sonos beta, which basically means that you're on the Sonos beta because it's the
mhm,
equipment that's getting the beta. And it was a terrible process. Updating the apps was very buggy and terrible and whatever. But the funny thing is, like after several months of testing something, like what you got was this really minor change all the time. And
yes.
so I haven't been doing that for a while, and I just got an email from Sonos that said, "Hey, here's all the new stuff in our new version of the software." And I thought, well, it's been 6 months or something, or maybe more, since I really paid attention to this. Let me go look and see what that entails. And you can go look at it for yourself. It's like nothing. It's like, what is this?
Mhm.
Like they tested this thing for like several months with a bunch of beta testers and their devices out in the world and whatever. And can I put Audible on it yet? No. Then what are we talking about here? Like, what is this?
Right.
Really strange.
No, it really is. Their development, they did just get a new CEO like
Yeah.
3-4 months ago, maybe it's longer than that. So hopefully their development priorities will shift to things that will actually help sell
To
devices
actual
because,
development.
yeah, they've
Yeah.
changed their UI about 17 times since I've had them and on the app.
I
And
can
it's
fix
like, guys,
Sonos
just,
right now. I can fix it right now. Obviously, future devices should just be compatible with everything. They're never going to do that. But what they should
yep,
do is add the ability to cast to Sonos. And I know some apps have it, like Google Play Music and
mhm,
Spotify,
yep,
and make it just an open program that's just like Chromecast or
yep,
whatever. You just add this button to
yep,
your app and whatever. Or even like just fake out Chromecast. Like I should be able to hit that Chromecast button and Sonos should just show up. Like just
mhm.
make it happen. Like I would be happy to buy this equipment. I want to buy it.
I'll tell you
I like it.
what's a really interesting scenario that I'm crossing my fingers this will actually happen. So
Hmm.
obviously AirPlay 2 is coming at some point. We know that's happening. What I
Yep.
hope to see, and this is going to take two behemoths to actually be nice and work,
It's like
but I'm
mating
hoping that,
dinosaurs.
yeah, there's that. I'm hoping at some
Sorry.
point in the not so distant future, a Apple TV will
Hmm.
broadcast the audio for Netflix playing on it to
Yes,
AirPlay 2.
of course, of course.
That would
And then
be
that will happen
that
over. Yes, it
that would
has
be
to.
amazing.
Right, because you could do an ad hoc 5.1 system that way, or at least
Right.
stereo, and it would be, yeah. I mean, God forbid that would be so simple.
Well, you'd have to
Yeah,
think that
I'm
Apple's got to
surprised
be
Apple doesn't
considering this.
have this. Yeah, yeah, they have to
Yeah.
be. How do they not have it? How do
Well,
they not
it's
have
because
this?
AirPlay 2 is not out. AirPlay 1 wouldn't support it. Um, but yeah, like that.
God.
Now, if Sonos comes out and says, yes, we'll do that, but you have to buy new Play 5s, I will take my two Play 5s down to their office and I will just sit on them and cry outside their front door until they give me new ones. Um, but
Where is Sonos located? Is it a nice place?
I'm going to find out. I'm guessing California, probably, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. Hmm.
So, anyways, moving on, folks. Let's see. Fall Creators Update is now on 3/4 of all Windows 10 PCs. That actually feels pretty quick. That feels.
It's really quick. Yeah, it took this off the top of my head. I always said it in the podcast, but I don't like reading notes.
Or
I want to say that the Creators Update took 5 months to hit roughly the same amount, percentage of usage. It took 3 months for the Fall Creators Update. So, this shows a couple things. I mean, one, Microsoft got around whatever the problems were with the Creators Update. Actually, I'm sorry, there were not huge problems with the Creators Update. That was the Anniversary Update. So I think the Creators Update was probably the first one where they, we'll do it at this speed. They slowed it down, didn't experience any problems. And then they thought they would be good to go for the Fall Creators Update. And they have been because, my dog is obviously barking because she can sense that I'm talking to someone else. I feel like they have gotten on top of the reliability issues, which is super important. And after, what is this, the 4th version of Windows 10, I think, I think they've kind of figured it out, like it's, this is something they can do, whether the value of updating your system twice a year with such a major change is there is, we can debate that one. But as far as the update stuff goes, I mean, I feel like they got ahead of it.
This next headline, I just found it funny. That's why I included it, but it's important to people. It says Intel claims, they made this on their earnings call, which I believe was yesterday, that the chips coming later this year will be free of Spectre and Meltdown flaws. Well, technically, all the chips that have been patched are free of Spectre and Meltdown flaws.
Yep. Yeah, all they have to do is apply the patches. Well, I assume what they're referring to is that, and I don't think this is going to happen this year, frankly, but over time, they'll engineer these chips or architect these chips in such a way that that kind of attack is hopefully no longer possible.
Right.
It's going to be interesting to see how that happens. We often joke about the the nameless Microsoft support engineer who invented the phrase, it's a hard computer science problem. But, the truth is this is one. And I feel like smart minds are going to look at this and there's going to be some breakthrough that could happen any day, frankly. And that includes the current chips. One of the big concerns with current chips, all chips, that obviously, is that the fixes often have a performance degradation. There are some issues that can't be fixed, apparently. And I think we're going to get around it. I really do. I sort of feel like software can make this work, that we can figure this thing out. So we'll see. Obviously, they need to engineer something new for the future, but I think we're going to be okay. He says days before the most horrible computer attack of all time. I think so. You know what I mean? Like the 9/11 of electronic attacks occurs tomorrow because I said that. Sorry, everybody. I don't know, but yeah.
We're just going to move
Happy
on.
Friday.
Not even going to comment on that. But folks, ransomware has been on the rise, not just Spectre and Meltdown, but actual true ransomware that basically locks everything up and kind of holds it hostage. But Cloudberry, these guys, they're honestly probably worth checking out. I know we're going to have a lot more about them in the next couple of weeks, but what they do is actually really interesting. So you have your own data on your own computer or wherever. You can pick any cloud, any of them, or even your own, and it'll back up to that platform. It's very simple. You're not tied into any cloud service. So if one day Amazon has lower prices, you can go with Amazon. If next month Microsoft has lower prices, you can go with Microsoft. You really just kind of bring your own storage. They bring it with the software and back it all up and make it really super simple and easy. Check them out at cloudberrylab.com/FRD. And I don't know, just go check them out. They're worth taking a look at. And I really do mean that. But what I really don't mean here, Paul, is so I went to the gym last night.
I'm sorry.
At the gym. Well, I go to the gym every other day. I enjoy it. It gets me out of my radon-filled basement. Keeps me.
That's fair. Yep.
Keeps me healthy. And so this was the first time I've ever had this happen, but it seems like Apple should be smarter than this, which is why I'm worried that they will never bring AirPlay 2 to their Apple TV. So on my Apple Watch, which is what I use to keep track of heart rate and all that crap, I have to manually turn on exercise mode because it can't figure that out. Fine, whatever.
Right.
So I do my workout. I'm there for 55, 60 minutes, come home, put the thing on the charger, shower, go to bed, wake up this morning, put it back on my wrist. I forgot to turn workout mode off.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Can I guess?
you would
Can I guess that they don't offer you a way to edit this so that it actually goes down to what it was really, the 45 minutes or whatever you spent actually exercising?
correct.
Well, here's
There's
the good
no.
news. You have just
Yep.
broken your all-time record for workouts. Congratulations on that. And the bad news is you will never break that record again because
Yep.
you're probably never going to work out for 9.5 hours or whatever that works out to.
What I find even more interesting is that this thing should have been smart enough to know that, hey, if it's charging, there's no way he's wearing it. Like that's
Yeah.
you don't go to the gym with the charger
Um,
underneath and like plugged in.
does the Apple Watch support automatic sleep detection? Does it do that kind of thing? It should.
I don't know. And this is also the first gen, so it's not like I don't know what improvements really came with second, third gen other than
Yeah.
LTE with 3 and waterproofing with 2. So I'm sure
I'm
one of them
sorry.
does at some point. But yeah, I woke up this morning and it's like, hey, you've already got your fitness goal. Like as I'm driving my kid to school, and I'm like, what? Like I haven't. It's been on my wrist for 10 minutes.
You got all these like little achievements, like you were working out after midnight. It's like ding, and you surpassed like an hour. Ding.
Yeah, it's called late night snack when you're working out at 1 a.m.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing.
So, kind of, this popped up, Paul. We talked about this a little bit earlier, and I'm going to read some excerpts from a post. I believe it was Windows Central who got this or came up with Windows Polaris, and it basically breaks down into just a couple different segments. And so we'll walk through them because Paul and I I should say, we're on the same side of the fence that we don't really think that this is too much of anything. It says, according to their
So it
sources,
must have been a really
Microsoft
short post then. There's so
according,
little to it.
Wait,
yes.
Are you, we haven't even gotten to like 3 words in and you've already got commentary.
I know. I'm sorry.
All right. According to their sources, Microsoft is building a new version of Windows 10 for PC devices like desktops, laptops, 2-in-1. The new version is built entirely on UWP, making it Microsoft's first truly modern Windows OS. And there's the first sentence which I have issue with.
Well, I was going to say,
is,
there's a record scratch right there. That's impossible.
First off, you can't. You can't build the OS inside of a UWP container. That's not how this works.
So I think what they're pointing to is that we've heard about this Andromeda system and that it was going to be like a Windows mobile thing. It's not Windows 10 mobile. It's like a new mobile system. And I think the real point of this is that because it's not actually possible for it not to have all of the desktop stuff in it, at least the core desktop stuff. UWP apps rely on it, actually. I mean, it has to be there. But it is possible to lock down Windows further so that you don't have access to that stuff. I mean, Windows 10S or 10 Pro in S mode, whatever you want to call it, is a big step in that direction. So it sounds like an evolutionary step forward with even more lockdown, I guess, if that makes sense.
Right, which I tend to agree with that because things like drivers, you can't get away from having driver support in the OS unless they're going to re-architect the entire thing, which I don't think they're going to do because that would be a very tough sell at this point when we all kind of agree that the PCs are in the later half of their life.
Does this article suggest that this system is ARM only?
No, I don't believe so. But here's the next kind of nugget. It says Microsoft is looking into bringing Centennial Win32 app support to Polaris via remote virtualization, kind of like HP did on the Elite X3, but with containers that make for a more native experience.
Okay, that's not virtualization. It's just remote. It's like, well, okay, no, I'm sorry. I guess if you're running it, no, it's just remote. You're remotely displaying an app on a thin client. That's just remote desktop. There's no remote virtualization. It's I do, I do wonder with Windows 10s today, what about local virtualization, right? Microsoft has had app virtualization technology for a long, long time. Windows 10s theoretically would have the capability to run like Hyper-V or whatever. Why couldn't it have application virtualization, right?
Right.
This is another level of abstraction away from what Windows 10 on ARM does, in the sense that, that in that case, you're running it on top of the system. There is native code running, but you're translating x86 code into ARM at some point. It's at some level in the stack. In this case, you would basically have a virtual environment which would take up resources. running in the background so that you could run these apps locally. I mean, you know, if we're going to run anything remotely, I mean, that you can do that on an iPad today. I mean, there's nothing special about that, right? So it has to be a little more sophisticated than that to be of note.
And then the last thing here, it says existing Windows users won't be able to upgrade to Polaris, nor will eventual Polaris users be able to upgrade to Windows 10 Pro.
Yeah. I think what they're pointing to is Andromeda.
Something seems off here, and I can't quite put my finger on it, because you have what's going on with Windows on ARM, and that is technically amazing, or whatever you want to call it. It was a big feat of engineering to get that to work at the level that it is.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, yeah. Yes.
I mean, to bring Windows to sit on top of that and do all that and allow you to have somewhat older style applications. It seems like Microsoft.
I'm sorry. Windows NT had cross-platform capabilities for a long time. It used to run on all kinds of different platforms: PowerPC, MIPS, Alpha, whatever. They kind of walked away from that for a little while, and then they got back into it, and that's what enabled Windows RT first, and now Windows 10 on ARM. I think the most significant thing about Windows 10 on ARM is not so much Windows, because, if you're running an x64 version of Windows, you're technically doing something very similar when you run 32-bit apps in that system, because those things aren't actually compatible. There's some special software in Windows that makes that happen, Windows on Windows, which is how they're doing the ARM stuff, basically. It's obviously more technically impressive to do it across two completely different platforms, but still, it's the basics are there. Anyway, the most technically impressive feat that's occurring here is how far ARM chips have advanced, right? Mm-hmm. In the past, you would say something like, well, I'm going to run this Android emulator or whatever on my Windows PC, which we have those applications. And that kind of makes sense, because x86 or x64 is like this big legacy, powerful desktop system, and it should be able to handle this small, light, mobile thing in virtualization. I've been writing about running the Amiga, for example, on a Raspberry Pi, which is a ridiculously low power computer. That's how things are. You take something more impressive and you run something less impressive. The fact that you can emulate x86 on ARM that's all you need to know about how far ARM has progressed. I mean, it's incredible. The question is whether a new Microsoft mobile platform that runs on ARM, maybe on ARM only, makes any sense without the ability to run the stuff that makes Windows, right? Yep. And unfortunately for fans and for Microsoft, I think the answer is no. I mean, so we'll see. I mean, if this Andromeda thing is what people think it is, if it's this foldable thing with two screens, a reader, a note taker, blah, 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 whatever, you might be able to make the case that it makes sense for that system to be simpler and more streamlined, UX and internally, architecturally. But is there room in the market for this thing? Like, is someone pining away with their iPad or phone today saying, I wish there was this other thing that wasn't compatible with any of the software that you have? I just don't see the point of
it. To me, it sounds like there's the story here, I don't think is completely clear,
yeah. I think they only have little drips and drabs of what's happening, and
right, because there's got to be a bigger narrative here, because with what's happening with Windows 10s, they're almost backtracking a little bit with what they're doing with S, and then this seems to be taking that type of Windows 10s mentality and amplifying it because you're more locked in, but that doesn't seem to be the way. Microsoft can't afford to just wipe the slate clean again. That doesn't work. They can't start an ecosystem from scratch anymore. They don't have that ability. And so,
we can only theorize. So what the hell? Let's theorize. Right. I think we talked about this the other day. I have a theory that Microsoft is changing the messaging, at least on Windows 10s. Right now, it's Windows 10 Pro and S mode. It's just a mode. And I know they've used that language in the past, but they appear to be literally renaming the thing. And the process of going from S to Pro is not the same process as going from Home to Pro. It's not an upgrade. It's not an in-place anything. You're literally flipping a few switches. You have to reboot. It happens almost instantaneously. It's just taking some locks off. That's all it does. So it kind of is a mode. It's like a subset. Maybe they're going to eliminate the time limit on upgrading to Pro from S. I kind of wish you could go back to S, by the way, from Pro. I think that would be very interesting if that was a two-way street. And that this is the new S in a sense, right? That the original vision for S was this lockdown thing, but it's not really locked down. Like I pointed out the other day that if you install Spotify, which is a store app, it's a desktop bridge app, but it's a store app, it actually puts 2 startup processes in the startup folder. And every time you boot your computer, it runs. And a store app should never be able to do that, right? And so there's I guess there's a need for it of some kind. I can't imagine what it is, but maybe just performance or whatever. But it kind of stands in the face of what some of the promises were for Windows 10s around performance degradation over time and performance rot and so forth. Maybe this is their second attempt. Like this one's not, there's not going to be a switch, right? There's not going to be a way to go back because it's not a mode of Pro. It's literally something, it's shifted off to the side, something different. I mean, they very clearly believe in Windows 10s for some reason. Maybe this is a purer version of it.
Yep. Paul, do you remember yesterday when I said who I thought was going to interrupt our podcast?
Yes.
Phone call.
Yep.
Well, my car, I believe my car is ready. That if you heard my phone ring for half a second.
Wasn't that supposed to be done yesterday?
Yep.
Wasn't this like an oil change or something, or some standard maintenance?
No, so it was an oil change and tire rotation, and then the volume knob, the center stack volume knob, didn't work. It just stopped working, and so they had to order like that replacement unit and fix it. But what I did learn yesterday, Paul, is that a Ford F-150, the full full cab, so full front seat, full back seat, kind of thing. And it also has the extended cab on it. This is a big truck. Will not fit in my garage.
Ah, yes. So at least you have room in your child requires a car seat, obviously, so you can put your daughter in the car seat. And okay.
Actually, I just leave her in the bed and tell her to hold on. But,
just attach it to the bed and face backwards. You'll be fine. Just do this when you see trucks. It'll be delightful. It won't be
cold when your hands are frostbitten. Trust me. So.
She's young. She'll get over it.
She will. What doesn't kill them makes them stronger. You got anything else for today, Paul?
No, I still haven't published those device reviews. I'll work on that. I've got that Mike Nash interview I keep intending to publish someday. I promise. I'm working on it. I don't know. Basic, work stuff.
Yeah.
What about you?
Well, I assuming I haven't actually listened to the voicemail, but I'm guessing that my car is ready. So I am thinking that my afternoon will be filled with me driving up to get that car.
Or hilariously, they've discovered another problem with the vehicle or that part didn't come in and they were wondering if it was okay if they held it for the weekend.
I think I'm going to be going to get my vehicle here, hopefully in a little bit. We're just going to say.
Okay, good. I hope so too.
That's kind of it. Mostly because my wife refuses to drive this truck because she is 5'3" and this vehicle is about 17'9". Feet high.
Does it have those little ladder things that come down for the driver's side? You know how they have those sometimes on trucks?
This is a loaner. This is a very interesting loaner vehicle because why would you give? I don't know why they gave me this thing as a loaner.
You posted a picture of this thing. You should take a picture of it.
I can post a picture of it.
Yeah,
because it's a quad cab, which is great. It's 2018, has 400 miles on it. But it's huge. Wow. And then the interior is bare bones. The backup camera is approximately the size of a baseball card. And so when you have a truck this big, you don't even you could hit a kid and not even know it. But here we are.
I went to Washington, D.C. years ago, and I rented a car. And I always order the same vehicle, which is the smallest one you have, because who cares?
Right.
And the vehicle I got was a Hummer. And I was like, this in no way resembles the vehicle I ordered. And they said, don't worry about it. We don't have any more cars left. It was like the Seinfeld joke, the easy part is making the reservation. And they said, you can have a free tank of gas. So I probably could have used 3 tanks of gas because that thing probably got 9 miles to the gallon. But the point of this vehicle is you have a viewport that's about that thick, so it's like driving a submarine outside, and the center, what do you call it? The tunnel that goes through for the transmission or whatever,
Yeah.
was so big I could have driven my car through it. So it was like the front seat of like a Camaro kind of, but with even less view outside. And it was like the most awful. It was just awful. And because you drive down the street like this, and it's amazing that I didn't kill anyone and or destroy any vehicles. Like it's astonishing.
Well, we can only hope that maybe one day you'll get to live out your dream and actually do that. And then I won't have to deal with you on a daily basis.
Interesting. Unless it's you. Dun, dun, dun.
When you wish upon a star, Paul. When you wish upon a star. My vehicle is ready, by the way.
Oh, good.
All right. That wraps it up for today, folks. We will be back next week with a normal schedule, actually. But today's show is brought to you by Cloudberry Lab. Check them out, cloudberrylab.com/FRD, to learn more about their backup solution and how to keep yourself safe from ransomware. And we will catch you back here on Monday, but have yourselves a wonderful weekend.
I feel like RSS is broken. I keep getting the same article alerts over and over again.
I think you're broken.
Yeah, no, that's obvious.